Okay, so in continuation of this particular study where we stop, we've already get done to the research hypothesis. So what is needed next is the significance of study. Yeah, significance of study. So, and as you can see, Gemini also has detected that what we most likely need is whether to draft the research objective or the significance of study. Now, it's given this option because it recognized that in the study guide, we already have the research question and the hypothesis, but I have already drafted the research objective because if you have the research question, you already have your research objectives. So now we just want to go straight down to the significance of study. So I'm just going to say significant of study. Study, right? So after significance of study, then we would get to scope. After scope, then we get scope and limitation, right? Then we get to operational definition of terms, and with that, I'm done with the chapter 1 as required by the format for this particular project. Okay, so as it is right here now, it's not even showing the significance of study, and it's telling me it has been updated. Okay, look at what it did here. I think because I did not click canvas, so now I've selected canvas. I would then say rewrite the significance of study passage. Okay, complete potential harmony. Okay, it's telling me what it has done. Okay, I'm not even understanding what it is here, but let me reprompt it. So that is one thing with Gemini. Gemini, you have to like keep interacting with it till you get what you actually want, as it has been reviewed, in the course of doing this particular task. So you can see what is here. Okay, significance to fintech, but I mean that is not quite clear. So, and now I'm reprompting it. I think we now have it in canvas. You can see the canvas is kind of loading, so let me wait for it to load. Okay, so you can see we now have it in canvas. Okay, so value to financial customer, value to academia, value to, so yeah, this is a significant of study, which is awesome. Copy this, and I'll do some editing right there. So this particular one, okay, I don't need all this. Okay, so I'm just going to significance of the study. Okay, so I don't need this. Uh, you know, those are some of the things you need to know. The number that is attaching to it is not in line with the, this is 1.6 and it's giving it 1.3, and we don't even want all this to carry number or value. I mean, sorry, what will I call that one now? So basically, this is how I want it to be. For some study or for some supervisor, they will tell you they want it to be in a full passage sentence and not have headings as such, as this. So, okay. So The next thing on the line is write scope and limitation of the study. Now, in this scope and limitation of study, the same way our objectives, question and hypothesis have a direct, like in the course of the previous video that I've done, it has been established that your chapter 1, 2, and 3 has a direct link. Everything links together. So in the same this thing, your chapter 1 has a direct link to your chapter 3, because your objectives will determine the type of data analysis that you will be doing. And for that reason is why I change the research question when we first had our research guide by what the output that the AI gave me. That was why I changed it to be analytical and not just descriptive, because before the research question was descriptive. And because I'm handling a master's project where in the school in question would prefer analytical nature and not just descriptive. For some school they prefer descriptive. So take note of the caveat that I'm including, which is stating that the school, it all depends on the school and the supervisor. But for this particular school, I've worked with them over time. I know, to the best of my knowledge, except if the client now come back to say the supervisor demands that it should be descriptive, but that's rare. So I know too well that the supervisor or the school, the way they want their or that particular department, will prefer their research to be more analytical. So, and in that sense, in your chapter 3, you'll be stating that you'll be performing correlation or regression analysis. So that's why I had to interact with the AI to change it to be more analytical in nature, the research question, which I further edited, then I edited it, then use it to formulate the objective and the hypothesis, right? So now down to your scope and limitation is another part that also tells where your research wants to cover, where it does not want to cover. And in that sense, it has directly with your analysis, because it also speaks of where your analysis is covering and where your analysis will not also cover. So when they say scope are the area. Now the scope will be directly linked to the objective, saying that okay, this study wants to examine the text, the digital usability, the responsiveness, the trust, and all of that, to measure customer experience. So the what is it called? The scope will also talk about the area. Now this study has a case study. Now that case study will interpret the scope. It will tell that the scope of the study is for that particular case study, and in that sense the population will be directly it will be directly related to the case study, the employees, the customers of that particular company as a case study. And in that sense, we are already getting our limitation. So the limitation will be something like the study cannot be the general application of the study is constrained by the fact that the study is only limited to this particular case study. So therefore it cannot be generally applicable to every fintech, because the case study is actually a fintech. So it may not be applicable to it will use the language of it may not be applicable to other fintech due to their their peculiarity of what they may be facing. You understand? So then the population also, it will say that the general application of the study, it will also be limited by the population, because in true sense you can't say a population of just that is limited to a particular case of study and cannot be generally applied to every other population. And this study is on customer experience. dwelling on the fact that customer experience can be very dynamic. So in that sense, the study may not. So those are the limitations that will be acknowledged. So when you now get to chapter 3, your population will be stating that the customers. So whether we now have the actual figures of the customer or we do not, will now be debated, will be something of debate in the chapter 3, or will be something to determine in the chapter 3, which will then result to our samples. We determine the sample size that we'll be using, right? So let's, having that at the back of your mind will then inform you to know how the scope and limitation of study should be formed, or what it should look like. You understand? So for instance, the significance of study is just basically saying that those that will benefit, those that the research or the study will be of importance to. So by me looking at it, I see that, well, it's in line. I mean, because it will be important to fintech, management of fintech company, to customer, to academia, like it has, like I stated right here. So now let's tell it to write scope and limitation of study, and let's see what we found here. Okay, so this is it. We already have our scope and so somebody will say, why am I explaining that? Why am I explaining the scope and limitation of study? Remember that we have a journal that we have uploaded to the AI to work on. Now that journal, when you are telling AI to now write anything, it might be directly linking it to the journal, which may be different, or would most likely be different from the direction of your own study. And like I said, based on the framework of AI, it's always best to have an idea of what you want. You understand? To have an idea of what you want, so you don't just copy something that is not, because no matter how efficient AI can be, you still have the responsibility to guide it on what you actually want to do, so it does not, so that you stay on point, so that you get, because AI is something. I mean, look at it. Gemini is AI and can make mistakes. So there's always that disclaimer. Look at it down here. Across all AI, so which means they are not 100% efficient, but they can work faster. The purpose of using it is to make our work faster. They can work faster than human. You understand? So they can work faster. They can easily think. Imagine if I'm to write this chapter 1, I can't do it in a day. So that's one benefit that AI has brought to us. So now let's copy this. And you can see is immediately talking about the methodology, which will be reflected also in the chapter 3, right? So is even saying that it's going to use 5 Likert scale, and that's because the research guide, we've also have interacted with the AI, we've both, that this is human and AI working together, then to have a quality output. I've interacted with the AI, I've made the AI to understand that this is what I want to do, this is the direction we are going. So in that sense, he's working with it. You understand? So is even acknowledging methodology. If you flash back to where I was instructing it that I want the question to be analytical, then it asked me, am I intending to use Likert scale? Remember, I explained what Likert scale is and why we want to use it. And me acknowledging it that, okay, this is what I want to, this is the direction I want to go. AI would not know all those things. You have to know. Are you getting it? So, and that is why we are having something of this nature, as our scope of study and limitation. So let me copy that right away. And so you can see this study is conducted in Nigeria and is restricted to active customer of Precept Credit Limited who utilize credit wallet mobile or application, USDT channel or distinct portal. Target-wise, the population is bound to salary professional and public sector employee who have successfully registered and gone through at least one loan repayment cycle with credit wallet. You can see. So you can see, just as I expected it, then conceptually the scope of this study is limited to 4 independent dimensions. You can see. So anybody else want to pick up this study, reading the scope and limitation, the person will understand that this is the area that has been covered. or the area that is of measure to customer experience. So obviously there are different measure or dimension to customer experience. So if this study is undergoing this dimension, then another study will pick it up, the same topic, but the study will now then go in other direction other than what this study has already done. Or it could even go to this direction and say is increasing its scope. So that will form another research gap. That will form another future research in our chapter 5, recommendation for future research. Are you getting it? So that is exactly what we are doing here. I mean, that is exactly how to work perfectly with AI. So with this, if you are privy to watch this video, you should be able to do chapter 1, 2 to 3 perfectly, or near perfect. Let me put it that way. So you can see the dependent variable are restricted to customer satisfaction and customer retention. So the aspect of the marketing this that we want to measure is basically customer satisfaction and customer retention, measured by repeat borrowing frequency, and brand advocacy, measured by positive peer referrals. Now, we in the chapter 1, in the background to study passage, we've already highlighted why this thing is of importance to the organization, because measured by positive peer referral will reduce the customer company operational cost to acquire another customer, right? You know, it will increase their earnings, you know, and brand advocacy and positive peer referral work together. Because what is brand advocacy? That is the customer telling somebody else, word of mouth, about their products. So I may not be a marketing expert, but reading it, it's giving me an idea of what I'm doing. Is also equipping my knowledge in return, even if I don't have any knowledge about it. So then it says methodology, the study adopts a quantitative research study. Data collection is restricted to a structured and the statistical perfect, right? Just as I wanted it. That doesn't mean it's not is not subject to correction. Of course, it's subject to correction, but at least, you know, doing it is giving the impression that what is being done is of good quality, right? So then I say limitation of the study. So I'm going to stop this video right away. I don't want it to be too long. Then in our next video, we'll be looking at, I'm going to do the operational definition of terms. Then in our next video, we'll be looking at how to do chapter 2 of this same study. So see you guys in the next video.